Hello, and welcome to part 4 of the train project. Now, you may recall when I was building these, I did find a couple of items missing, and basically, what I've done, let me show you the first one. Let's have a look. Is it this? No, it's this one. The first one was I'd got a little coupling hook missing. I don't know whether you can see that. So basically I took a mould of one of the other ones that I'd got and then just used some green stuff to mould a replica, and that got round it, and I've just glued that on. So that one's now complete and it's ready for the painting process. Now, I did wash all these parts, but I have washed them just to be sure that I didn't miss any. I'm not sure that there'd be any, release agents or anything on these that might affect the painting, but it's just a bit of a habit I've got into now of anything 3D printed. I always wash it. So that was that piece. Now, I don't know whether the other piece was missing as such, or whether I'd knocked it off at some point. But I'd lost one of the buffers from the front of this. As you can see, the purple one with the wood face. Basically what I did, I didn't want to wait for any taking a mould of it this time. So I just got a cheap paintbrush that was pretty used up, and I just sawed a piece off the end to the right width, and then again with a wooden end of a wooden brush that was spent, I cut the disc to glue on the front of it, and it's a fairly good match. So basically the next process now is to give these a primer, and I'm going to go initially, well, certainly for the loco I'm going to go black. I've not made up my mind on these ones yet. I might go for a brown, but certainly black on the loco. And then when I've done that, because I'm going to have to do that outside, I'll bring you back and I'll show you them, and then we'll start the painting process. Right, so now it's time to start bringing this train to life a bit. So what I'm going to start with is, although it's all in matte black at the moment, and that needs to be a good starting point, if you like, I do want to show a slight gloss on this part. Obviously we're then going to grime it up a little bit, but nevertheless it needs to have that bit of a shine on it. So I've decided to try and use some of this Vallejo glossy black. I've not used it before, but I thought I'm going to give it a go and see if it gets the desired effect. So we're going to learn this together. As I say, I will then dress it back down, but I want at least that part of the train to have its original shine. Let's have a look. As you can see that, I mean obviously we've got to see how it dries yet, but it's definitely glinting a bit more at the moment, but let's see how it dries. But I'm going to persevere and give it a coat anyway. I've actually brushed over these wheels as well, because I think it might, when I come to doing dry brushing and everything under there, the bits that I miss will add to the glisten of the grease and things like that under there. So I've thought, well, I might as well just give it a quick, not, you know, going mad with it, but just a quick blast of the gloss underneath as well, and then I'll mix it in with the, you know, the greasy metallic dry brushing that I do. Right, I'll let that dry. We'll start on the tender now. Obviously on the top here I won't be painting, let's put a bit of light on that. I won't be painting on here because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some PVA down on there, and I've got some like coal effect scatter that I'm going to drop on here just to give it a little bit more of a look. I'm going to leave these boxes that are on here, whether you can see them in here. I'm going to pick them out with a more of a metallic look. And obviously this bit, to me, I mean, I'm not sure what this was. It looks wood to me. I'm not a trainee, I'm afraid, so I don't know totally what it would be, but it looks, the way it's patterned on here, like it's wood. So I'm not quite sure. I might have a quick look round and see if I can see something that gives me a clue. But for now, I'm not going to bother glossing it anyway. Again, I'm going to go over the wheels, you know, just to add a bit of glimmer to it, hopefully. I mean, a lot of this will just disappear when I start, you know, grinding up the wheels a bit, but I do want to have at least a suggestion of shining in like the greasy areas. So I'm just giving it a quick brush over, and hopefully some of that will stand out through the weathering that I do at the end. On the other buffers, let's have a look. Yeah. Right, so I'm going to let them all dry, and then we can turn our attention to the coaches first. I think I'll come back to the engine and the tender in a bit, because they're mainly black anyway. I have got to paint up some winder effect on these, and you know, pick out one or two bits, but I think these are going to be the main one, and I think dry brushing is going to be my friend on these, but obviously I need to give them an overcoat first. But I'll let them dry for a bit and then I'll bring you back. So on my coaches, basically I'm going to go with an old wood by Vallejo and just, you know, coat them all over inside and out. And then obviously I'll do some dry brushing to bring out more detail, and then some of the metallic parts later. But initially I'm just going to give it an overpaint with this. I've over time gathered quite a few Vallejo colours along the way, and I think I've not come across any that are as good, you know, for old wood look as Vallejo's old wood. You know, it's a really nice go-to paint whenever you've got anything, you know, wooden to paint. It really is the stuff. And you know, over time I get through quite a bit of it. So I've just recently ordered a few bottles because I knew I was going to be doing this, and I've got some other projects that involve wood, so but it's a nice paint. I don't know whether you can see, it's not a particularly great coat. You know, you've got bits of the black coming through. Not too worried about that. I'm going to obviously do a lot of dry brushing on here. And the main thing is I wanted to get a fairly decent coat down. And some of this is going to add to the weathering effects of it, you know. So I'm quite happy for that to be there. What I don't want is for it to look, you know, all over too perfect. I want it to look like a working piece of kit. So for now, I'm going to leave that one at that level and press on and do these two as well. I won't drag you through seeing me do these because I'll just bring you back when I'm near the end, because obviously just watching me paint's pretty boring, but I'll bring you back in a bit. So what I'm going to do now is, if you look at these parts, the metal parts that are obviously holding it all together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint them like a very dark grey. Well, let's have a look. It's an army painter one. This is Necromancer Cloak. I'm going to paint it in that initially. Then I'm going to give it a, you know, I mean, obviously it's going to take me some time, but after that, I shall give it a light brushing with a metallic, perhaps gunmetal. And then after that, then I'll start applying the rust, because that's predominantly what it'll look like. But this is initially just to get that first colour down on it. And obviously as regards this one, I've got to be a little bit more careful than I have been being, you know, putting down the main colour. Because that's all we've done at the minute, is just basically put down the base colour, and now we can build on it. Well, as you can tell, I'm not the best painter in the world by by any imagination really, but it's like I've said before, you know, they're your models. You just do your best. There's always going to be somebody out there that's infinitely better, and there's always going to be somebody that's worse. So I think the secret is just to be happy with your own ability. And one thing I've noticed, like with everything that you do, over the years I have improved a little bit. I think we all do. You know, just trial and error really, isn't it? So, but like I say, the best thing is to not get hung up about it. And it's quite rewarding, you know, over time. You know, when I do look back at some earlier projects, you know, although I'm, you know, like I say, not brilliant, I can see some improvement, and that's encouraging. I mean, as you can see, it's going to be a long process, so I won't keep you here for the whole of it. What I'll do is I'll go round and do the rest of these, do the same on the other two wagons, and then when I'm getting ready for the next coat, I'll bring you back and show you a bit more of that. Right, back in a sec. One thing I have done, and I think this works quite well, I don't know whether it's going to show up terribly well on the camera, but I've gone with this necromancer cloak, which is a very dark grey. I've gone over these parts, look, but I've left the wheel black. And when you think, you know, I know there's a couple of components here, but it's mainly one piece. I'm trying to give it the feel that it's actually a moving item and it's not just moulded. So I'm going to leave that like that. Obviously I'm going to be dry brushing some metal finish and some rust in places. But I thought this little technique seems to have worked out quite well by highlighting these bits and leaving that black. It gives a sense that it's movable and it's not just a moulded piece. Just a thought anyway. But as I say, I think we'll chuck the brush away and I'll get cracking on this one and then I'll bring you back. Right, so I've gone round all these coaches with that necromancer cloak colour, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very dry brush of some gunmetal on it, and I mean, obviously this is going to take a little while, but then I shall move on to doing the rust effect on most of it. But I can apply this to the wheels as well. So as normal with your dry brushing, get it on your brush, take a lot of it off. It's very subtle, I think you can see that. You pick that out from the black ones at the end, look. Right. If you compare them two, I think you can see the difference. Look at the wheels. on that one. Obviously it's too bright at the minute, but the underneath I'm not sure that I should really bother, but you know me, I can't leave it, so I probably will just give it a quick blast over. I'll weather this quite severely underneath anyway, so don't need to be too precise. Right, so that's that one. I'll leave that at that stage. We'll come back to the rusting, and I'll do the same to this one, and then I'll bring you back. Right, so that's what it's looking like. I think what I might do, I might do the same effect on the windows actually, just the frame, because obviously I've got to come up with a window effect on the main bit, because obviously it's not actually open. Picked out those windows. I don't know whether you can see them. You see the side ones better. I'll just pick out a bit of a feature on this as well. Pick out some of the bits in here with gunmetal as well. Whether you can see that. I just want to, give a suggestion of it being 3D. So that's like that. Just picking I'm not touching the bars going across. I'm just focusing on the wheels with this. I'm going to leave them as they are, and then I can try and apply a bit of a grease look to it as well. And I'm not going on the black background either. So I'm just literally dry brushing the wheels themselves. Right, I'll get the rest of that done and then I'll bring you back. Right, to do these windows, I'm using a bit of Spaceship Exterior, an army paint colour, and I've trimmed down this really old brush because I want to keep, a bit of control on this. I just want more of a cloudy effect for the window rather than it being too oblique. So I'm going to kind of use it a little bit like a dry brush. So I don't want too much paint on. I don't want to cover it too much because I want it to look as much of as transparent as it can be. I mean, I know you can use blues and things in this, but I don't think blue would work on this occasion. I did think about putting a bit of red in, you know, to show the fire coming through, but I think I'm just going to keep it simple and just do this. But by keeping it, you know, fairly, you know, a small amount of paint on it and dragging it around rather than, you know, obliquely filling it in, I think it'll achieve what I'm after. Right, so I'll just show you the side window. I've kept it fairly simple, as you can see, and on these front ones as well, either side and the other side. And I think I'm going to leave it at that for now. On the engine, I want to keep it relatively simple. Obviously I'm going to be weathering it and everything, that's to come, but at least now I've got all the basic colours down and it looks a little bit more 3D. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let that dry a bit and turn my attention to this. So let me just get set up and then I'll bring you back. Right, just before I start work on the tender, I've just remembered on the engine itself, I need to paint the buffer plate at the front. So I'm going for a pure red. Might as well get that done and then the engine can be left to completely dry while I'm working on the tender. Right. Might have to paint this more than once, because obviously I'm going over the black with the red, but we'll see. Sorry about all the pinging. Times I've said I'll have to leave my phone turned off when I'm filming. But then, if I suddenly started getting a little bit more professional, you wouldn't know it was me anymore, would you? I'm afraid I'm as big an amateur now as I was when I started. Yeah, I'm definitely, I think, you know, I think I'm going to want to paint this again, because the black is showing through. And to be honest, you know, like army paints are, you know, they're quite thick normally, so it's not normally an issue. But yeah, I think I definitely will. Just focus on getting the main coat on first. I have had a look at a few pictures, and funnily enough, I found almost this exact engine online just now in a photo. Obviously, the photo has been took fairly recently, and would you believe it? It's got these brass rings on it, and it's even got the brass around the window, which I thought was a bit, you know, I was going out on a wing with that. So I'm quite pleased with that. I mean, obviously, it's been painted that way, you know, when it's been restored or whatever, but whether it would have looked like that during the war, I'm not sure, but I think it'll be okay. Anyway, that's what that's looking like now. I might even just paint the centre circle on that, because I have seen that on trains myself, where the centre's got something on it. It's usually a plate or something, but just gives it a bit more detail, don't it, really? It brings it to life. You know, I'm not suggesting anybody else that's, you know, doing the train needs to bother, but it's just me. But there we go, look. It just gives it a bit of something, don't it? Right, I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll give it another coat at some point. But now I'm going to turn my attention to the tender itself. Now, from the pictures that I've seen, most of this is just, you know, black, and that's pretty much it. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll do the same trick on the wheels, you know, highlighting them with a bit of the gunmetal and the buffers, and I'll also do a bit of gunmetal across the front of these two, whether you can see them, the two lamps here. I'll give them a dry brush over as well. Now this bit, I think I'm going to treat it, I mean, I'm not quite sure what that's of, but it suggests by the pattern of it that they're big thick wooden boards that's holding the coal back so they can lift them up. So I am going to give them a wooden pattern, but obviously we'll be dirtying the wood a little bit later on, and then I can pick out some of these boxes. But I won't show you that now because you've seen me doing that. So I'll get that done and then I'll bring you back. Right, so I've done one little thing, well, it wasn't very little, off camera, because I thought I'd spare you perhaps an outbreak of bad language, you know, because basically what I've done is I've had to cut individual numbers. I didn't have to, but I've done it, to make up the number that actually appears on the train that features in the film The Train. So that's included putting dashes in there. Now, not whether you can see how tiny they are, but when you start, I'm normally not bad at transfers, but when you're moving individual little dashes about, yeah, it gets a bit fiddly. So I've put a number on that side and a number on that side. I had to go all through my lettering to find something appropriate, and I didn't want it to be too big. And then I've also done it on the front, on the red buffer plate. So I thought I'd spare you that because it was a bit frustrating, I've got to be honest. And just an update on the tender. As I said, I've done the boxes and highlighted the details in the brass colour. But another thing I have done is I've just repainted the top edge here, and also the background of the undercarriage in a matte black, because I didn't want that shining out from behind the wheel effect that I was going for. So I've knocked that back down with a matte, and then I've also, you know, just put some detail on the lamps and put a little bit of white in the lamp screen. And then on the wood, I've started, you know, to mess it up a bit and give it, you know, a worn look. But basically at this point, I'm going to let this all dry now. I mean, well, some of it's pretty dry already, but I want the transfers to dry particularly, and then I'm going to seal them with a bit of decal fix. And I wanted to get them on because obviously the next stage for all of them is going to be the weathering, rust, stuff like that. So I'll get myself set up for that, and then I'll bring you back. Right, so now these are dry, it's time to apply some dry rust. And I'm going to use the Army Painter dry rust for this. Now, I'm very aware that initially this is going to seem, you know, very bright. So I want to be quite sparing with it. But at the end of the day, I will go over it with a black wash to tame it a little bit anyway. I'd normally use a lot smaller dry brush than this, but I seem to have lost it, so I've had to order one. So I'm just going to try and make do with the very edge of this one. It's a bit worn out, this one, but hopefully it'll be okay. Sorry about the light, the sun's streaming in. Don't want to complain because I don't see a lot of sun lately. You can see how that's starting to appear. I don't want it to be too strong, I want it to be fairly subtle. If I bring that in a little bit closer for you to see. You see, this is rusted up quite a lot. I've done a bit, but I obviously don't want to catch all of the wheels because I want them to be fairly shiny. A little bit on the buffers. I mean, it's not finished yet. But you can see it's not, if you compare it to this one, look, you can see it's starting to look a little bit more realistic. Right, I'm going to crack on and get the other two up to the same stage while that one's drying, and then I'll bring you back for the next stage. Can you believe it for timing? My small dry brush has just arrived, just in time for me to finish the third one. So anyway, I'll get this one painted up, as I said, and When they're dry, I'll bring you back for the next stage. Right, back in a minute. Right, now that we've applied the rust, that's had a bit of time to dry, I'm just going to give these coaches a bit of a dry brush with some skeleton bone, which is basically just like a lighter beige really. I can go back to a bigger dry brush on this one. Obviously avoiding the metal bits. Obviously it doesn't matter if you catch them a tiny bit, but trying to avoid it. And I want to do it inside as well. You can see the difference there, how that looks a bit more worn if you compare it to, I don't know, say this one. It's not, again, it's not finished yet, but right, so what I'm going to add to it now is a very light application of a light tone wash. This is just basically to dress it all down together, you know, bring all of it probably be easier to kind of show you this as tell you about it, but you can see how it starts to take away any of the, you know, like different areas of tone and brings them all together. So even, you know, like where you've got the light dry brushing, you're still going to have bits of that, but then it blends it more into the wood, and also where the rust has caught the wood in places, it helps blend that through into it as well. And the other thing that it's starting to do is give it that slightly grimy look, slightly greased look, like all the grime and steam and everything. Maybe again, if I compare it to one that I've not started, you can start to see how it's, I'm not doing a uniform coat with it, I'm just trying to blend any edges and catch it in the corners and things like grease and oil and dirt and that wood. I think I can call them done. There are a couple of bits on here that I'm going to use this on as well though. I like the way it works as like a grease finish as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a smaller brush. This one I will do. put some bits on the moving parts of the wheel. And on there. The other place I wanted to put some is on this floor plate in here. Whether you can see that. A little bit on the boiler plate. Yeah, that's looking better. As I say, I need to take this down. So, right, let me get this cleaned up, and then we'll have a quick look at that roof. Maybe even use the clay wash to do that. I'll have a look. Right, so I've been applying this grime wash. It seems to be doing the trick. I'm also going to put a little bit on the wheels. I don't think I need any of it on here, do I? Oh, maybe a bit. Not too much though. I do like this grime wash that I've found. It's nothing new, I know it's just new to me because I hadn't seen it. But it's like a clay based. It's by Flory Models. It's called Weathering Wash Grime. I think they do other ones as well, but I wanted this one really for the buildings that I was doing at the time. But I'm finding now it's suitable for a lot of things. So it's definitely tamed this roof down. Again. Right. Again, I want to put some on this underneath the boiler. Right, I'm going to let that dry, and then the next thing I want to be doing is I want to be putting some coal onto my tender here. So I'm going to let this dry and then I'll bring you back. Right, so now it's time to apply this coal. So I'm just using a strong PVA. I think that'll be enough. Because I'm not going to put a whole load in, I'm just going to put some in so it's not a flat base like this. It just look a little bit more effective. Alright. This is just some Jarvis number 25 coal. Don't matter if I scatter on too much because I can just shake off the excess. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let that sit there for a little bit. There's obviously lots and lots of loose stuff on here, but I'm using the weight to push it down to seal that first load in. So I'm not in a rush. I can tip this out in a bit and then I'll show you what it's looking like. I'll obviously probably have to do like a watered down PVA seal on it and all to make sure that it doesn't come off afterwards. Right, I'll get this done. As soon as it's dry, I'll bring you back with some photos of the finished project and we'll wrap this one up. Right, so here we are then, it's done. Sorry I haven't got any track to put it on at the minute. That's going to be the next project, I think. But on the whole, I'm pretty pleased with them. Definitely worth going the extra mile for it, because obviously I'm going to use this in not just the scenario that I've got planned, but probably lots of other little games, even if it's just a side feature or an objective. Anyway, I hope you found it interesting. As I say, I'm aware that this is a bit of a long video, but I hope you've got something from it. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, please consider giving me a thumbs up. You know, if you've liked this one and you want to see more of the videos, please consider subscribing and clicking that bell. And that way you'll get notifications when the next video drops. Just before I go, I thought it'd be nice to show you a few pictures of the train with the troops in place. The scale works really well with these. I'm really pleased with it. And just thought it'd be useful for you to see that, you know, on completion. Anyway, best not keep you any longer. I'll see you again soon. Bye.